अपापविद्धम् कबीरमनिषि परिभू स्वयंभू यथा तथियतोरथान वदादश शस्वतीभ्या समाभ्य सपर्यागच्छुक्रम अकायम् अवर्णम् अश्नाविरं शुद्धम् अपापविद्धम् कबीरमनिषि परिभू स्वयंभू यथा थियतोरथान वदादच शस्वतीभ्या समाभ्या. So, for word to word synonyms and translation and purport, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai. Saha, that person. Priyagat, must know in fact. Shukram, the omnipotent. Akayam, unembodied. Avarnam, without reproach. Ashnaviram, without veins. Shuddham, antiseptic. Apapaviddham, prophylactic. Kavihi, omniscient. Manisi, philosopher. Paribhuha, the greatest of all. Swayambhuha, self-sufficient. Yathat thiyataha, just in persons of. Arthan, desirables. Vyadadhat, awards. Shasviti Byaha, immemorial. Sama Byaha, time. So, that person must know in fact the omnipotent, unembodied, without reproach, without veins, antiseptic, prophylactic, omniscient philosopher, the greatest of all, self-sufficient, just in persons of, desirables, awards, immemorial, time. So, the translation. So, such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure, uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since the time immemorial. So this translation, this is a continuation from the previous verse, Ishu Mantra 7. So Hare Krishna Prabhuji, shall I continue? So in the translation, actually, this is referring to such a person. So actually, it's referring to the person that is described in the Isho Mantra 7. So we'll just actually refer back because Sanjay Prabhu has he has actually presented the Mantra 7. So just to refer that, so we know actually what we're talking about. So the Isho Mantra 7, Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmaiva Buddha Vijanatah Tatra ko moha kah shoka Ekatvam Anupashyatah. So one who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, and becomes a true knower of the things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So here, that person is referred here, that one who sees all living entities as spiritual spark, in quality one with the Lord. So this verse is actually talking about the Mahabhagavat. as it says in the actually purport is talking actually Uttamadhikari, even actually say except for the Madhyamadhikari. So it's mostly Uttamadhikari Mahabhagavat. So next verse is actually the continuation here. So here is saying that such a Mahabhagavat must actually know, greatest of all the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied. So the unembodied means actually he's not have any material body, because as a spirit soul, as ordinary living entities, as we are, we're actually embodied into the this material body. But personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, he's not embodied, into the material form. So we will discuss that in detail in the purport as we go through it. So here, actually, the omniscient means he's all knower. He knows everything. He's all knowing, beyond reproach. So the beyond reproach means actually Krishna is not actually within the limitation of anybody's agreement or disagreement or pleasure or displeasure. He's not bound by any of that. He can actually act very independently. He does not need anybody's permission. So beyond reproach, without whence, this is again referring to actually the body, where is actually in the verse it say akayam. So kaya means actually material body. Akayam means unembodied. So Shilarpo actually translated as unembodied. So the living entities get embodied into the material body, but Krishna, he is actually unembodied. So here, that actually without veins means ordinary material body has all this actually structure like veins and arteries and all that. But Krishna's body is not a material body; it's a transcendental body. So it's nothing like a material body. So it does not have the similar structure like a veins. So it's a without veins. And obviously, actually, Krishna, as a supreme personality of God, he's pure and uncontaminated. He is actually purifying force. Then self-sufficient philosopher. So as we know, the Krishna is a self-sufficient. We studied that in actually invocation mantra that actually Krishna is actually complete whole. He is actually complete in himself, and everything actually when emanating from him, it does not become anything lesser. So he's always self-sufficient, and he's been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So Krishna, as actually he is, living entities, they are the part and parcel of Krishna. So whatever the living entities they desire, actually Krishna fulfill his desires. So he's also present in everyone's heart as a Paramatma, and he's actually witnessing everything that we do, and he's also guiding us, giving us direction as well. But unless you are actually become conscious of Krishna, we do not realize this. So actually, whatever we desire, Krishna actually fulfill that desire. So that's why he's referred here as a self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. So this is just actually the translation, just actually focusing on translation, what we understand. This is just word to word, understanding what it means. So this is actually talking about definitely the personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada made that very clear, because when we hear the word like akayam, unembodied, the impersonalist may think that he's actually referring to the yes, the personality of Godhead, but he does not has any form. He is impersonal. But that actually, those point has been Srila Prabhupada has clarified those points in the purport very nicely, and we can focus on that. And he's actually talking about the form of the Krishna here, and also Krishna as a purifying power. He's purifying all the living entities, and he is fulfilling desires of all the living entities. So purport. Here is the description of a transcendental and eternal form of absolute personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is not formless. He has his own transcendental form, which is not at all similar to the forms of a mundane world. The form of a living entities in this world are embodied in material nature, and they work like any material machine. The anatomy of a material body must have a mechanical construction with the veins and so forth. But the transcendental body of a Supreme Lord has nothing like a veins. It is clearly stated here that he is unembodied, which means that there is no difference between his body and his soul, nor is he forced to accept a body according to the laws of nature, as we are. In material conditioned life, the soul is different from the gross embodiment and the subtle mind. For the Supreme Lord, however, there is never any such difference between him and his body and his mind. He is the complete whole, and his mind, body, and he himself are all one and the same. So, in this first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada actually talking about the eternal form of absolute personality of Godhead. So, the word absolute is also very important. So, what Srila Prabhupada is actually talking here is he is actually making the actually distinction very clear between the material body that all the living entities we get. When we born in the material world, we are given a material body according to our past karma or according to our desires in our past life. So, the actually material nature uh, actually build the body according to our desire, and that body is actually given to us. Even if we don't want it, we are actually forced to accept that material body. So that is the actually conditioned state of a living entity. He has no choice, but actually it is given as per his desires. So, and our body, as we know, is made up of actually what we call these panch mahabhutas, air, water, fire, ether. So these five elements our body is made of. So, and as we know, actually, Srila Prabhupada also make a reference here about the mechanical structure of our material body. So we all know, as per the medical science, now we all actually have the basic knowledge that our body is actually made of different elements, such as like veins, arteries, bones, muscles, cartilages, and so forth. So we know how our actually body is made of, and this body is just like a machine. And this is actually Srila Prabhupada says that this is a machine, that is actually given to the soul, the spirit soul. So there is a reference in Bhagavad Gita as well, where in 18.61 it is said, Ishvara sarva bhutanam riddeshi arjuna tishtati Brahmayana sarva bhutani yantra rudani mayaya. So yantra rudani mayaya. So in translation it says, Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated on a machine made up of material energy. So here our material body or sharir is referred as a machine, which is made of material energy. So our body is like a machine. So that is actually how our body is made of, our material body. However, when Krishna appear in the material world, he does not get the material body like us, nor he is actually subject to the laws of material nature, nor is he forced to accept any kind of body. So, as Srila Prabhupada says that there is no difference between Krishna himself, his body and mind. And he's a complete whole. His mind, body, and he himself are all one and the same. So his form is eternal. He's not like a material body. So that is very clearly, actually, Srila Prabhupada has made it very, very clear that there is a clear distinction between the body that we have and the body that Krishna have. So Krishna's form is eternal form, right? So in the next paragraph, I think there is more actually information given by Srila Prabhupada. So, okay, I think we covered all the points here. Uh, yeah. The one more important point is that when we actually here it is referred as a unembodied, the Supreme Lord is not formless, because the word akayam, so kaya means actually the material body, sharir. So it's referred as kaya. Akayam means unembodied, because if they actually, from the point of view of an impersonalist, they may actually interpret this as a impersonal form of a Krishna, Akaya. But actually, Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna is not formless. Uh, Akayam means actually his form is not material form. So his form is eternal form, as we discussed. So that point is actually very, very important, that we should actually understand here. Okay, so we'll move on to the next paragraph. I'll share the screen. Okay, Hare Krishna, Parth Prabhu and Maharish Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Very good.
Okay.
Sorry, I was on the bike, Prabhu. I couldn't join.
Okay, you can't join. Okay. I need actually a volunteer to read. Are you able to read, Maharish, or still traveling?
No, Prabhu, I can read.
Okay. So we already recited the actually verse. We went through the actually translation as well, and we already actually completed the purport, the first paragraph given by Srila Prabhupada. So as I was explaining that Srila Prabhupada is talking about the form, Krishna's eternal form, and actually there is a clear distinction between Krishna's body and actually the material body, the sharir, that actually living entities actually they are supposed to accept. There's clear distinction. Our form is material form, and as actually our form, is not eternal form. As we get old, our body get weaker and weaker, and once this body or the actually what is called a yantra or machine, when it's not functioning, we have to leave the body and we have to accept the new body, right? So that is actually the process that the living entity has to go through. So that is also explained in actually Bhagavad Gita, that he has to change body, from one body to another body. As it is said that dehinyasmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tata dehantar praptir dhiras tatrana muyati. So even in present body, we actually our bodies keep changing, from the baby to the boyhood, boyhood to the actually adult, adult to the old. And once we die, we have to actually leave this body and take on the another body. So this is the status for the actually living entities. So that is a material body, but Krishna's body is an eternal body. Krishna's body, it never decays. It's always there, eternal, and it's made up of three ingredient. So we will discuss that in next paragraph. But there is no difference. That's actually absolute nature of Krishna, that there is no difference between himself, his body, his mind. They are all one and the same. Even his paraphernalia, name, fame, everything, there is no difference. So that is actually absolute nature of a Krishna. So we'll understand that as we go. So Mayresh, can you start from the second paragraph now?
Should I start from the top, Prabhu, or the second paragraph?
Second, in Brahma Samhita.
Yeah. In the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, verse 1, there is a similar description of the Supreme Lord. He is described there as Satchidananda Vigraha, which means that he is the eternal form fully representing transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss. As such, he does not require a separate body or mind, as we do in material existence. The Vedic literature clearly states that the Lord's transcendental body is completely different from ours. Thus, he is sometimes described as formless. This means that uh, he has no form like ours, and that he is devoid of a form we can conceive of. In the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, verse 38, it is further stated that with each and every part of his body, he can do the work of the other senses. This means that the Lord can walk with his hands, accept things with his legs, see with his hands and feet, eat with his eyes, etc. In the Shruti, Shruti mantras, it is also said that although the Lord has no hands and legs like ours, he has different types of hands and legs by which he can accept all that we offer him and run faster than anyone. These points are confirmed in the eighth mantra through the use of the words like Sukram, omnipotent.
Okay. So here, so description, is given here as the Shukram, no, omnipotent. So the Lord, Lord Krishna, he has all the potencies, all the power. So he's omnipotent. So what does that mean? So first here in Brahma Samhita 5.1, so 5.1 is Ishvara Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. So Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. So Srila Prabhupada says that here the Lord's form is described as Satchid Ananda Vigraha. So Vigraha means form. So it's made up of three elements, Sat, Chit, and Anand. So as Srila Prabhupada writes here that he's an eternal form, fully representing transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss. So these are the ingredient his form is made of. And as with the living entities, we are also part and parcel of Krishna, right? We are the also his amsh, Mamai Mamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatan. So because we are his amsh, his part and parcel, actually our soul is also made of these three elements, Sat Chit Anand, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So we all know this now by now. So this is actually the Krishna's forms, and it is said that actually he does not require a separate body and mind as we do in the material existence. So our material body, so there is actually clear distinction that actually the soul is there. Soul is actually embodied within the body, and there is again subtle mind which is actually separate from the material body. So we have this element separately, however, as Krishna in previous paragraph, Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna himself, his body and mind, they're all one and the same. So that's absolute nature. But we have this actually distinction between our body, between our soul, and even up to actually subtle mind. The Vedic literature clearly states that Lord's transcendent body is completely different from ours, and that's why sometimes it's described as formless. So when Krishna is actually referred as formless, he do not have form like ours, means he do not have material form. So that's why he's actually sometimes referred as formless, right? So we should not actually misunderstand that actually Krishna is formless, So this is actually Mayavadis, they think that Krishna do not have any form, so that's why they call impersonalists. But the actual meaning of Krishna being formless means he do not have material form, but he do have his transcendental form, as we actually just discussed. And he has no form like ours, and he's devoid of form we can conceive of, In Brahma Samhita 5.32, the further information is given where it said that Krishna's, his body parts, they can actually do the work of other body parts or other senses, So what is stated here is that Lord can walk with his hands, accept things with his legs, see with his hands and feet, and eat with his eyes. So this is actually called actually absolute nature or absolute form of a Krishna. Even in Bhagavad Gita, I think in chapter 9, verse 26, Srila Prabhupada actually described the similar point, where actually, so this verse is very famous word, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yo Me Bhaktya Prayashyati Tad Tad Aham Bhakti Upaharitam Ashnami Prayatat Manaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, water, I will accept it. So, Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he writes that actually The impersonality philosopher who wish to maintain that absolute truth is without senses cannot comprehend this verse of Bhagavad Gita. To them, it is either metaphor or a proof of a mundane character of Krishna, the speaker of the Gita. In actuality, Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, has senses, and it is stated that his senses are interchangeable. In other words, one sense can perform the function of any other. That is what it means to say that Krishna is absolute. Lacking senses, he could not hardly consider full in all opulence. In the seventh chapter, Krishna has explained that he impregnates the living entities into the material nature. This is done by his looking upon the material nature. So, in this instance, Krishna's hearing the devotee's words of love in offering foodstuff is wholly identical with his eating and actually tasting. This point should be emphasized because of his absolute position. His hearing is wholly identical with his eating and tasting. Only the devotee who accepts Krishna as he described himself without interpretation can understand that supreme absolute truth can eat food and enjoy it. Okay, so this paragraph, from 9.26, Srila Prabhupada further actually explain the similar point that for impersonalists it's very hard to accept, because they do not accept Krishna as a person. For them, it's like a metaphor or it's a mundane character. But for devotee who have full faith in Krishna and who actually accept Krishna as a person without any interpretation, as it is actually described in Bhagavad Gita, for them it's very easy to understand because Krishna, being the omnipotent, he has all the potencies, So even he has senses, And Srila Prabhupada says that if if his if Krishna is impersonal, then there is no question of his having a senses. And if he's not having a senses, then Srila Prabhupada said he could hardly be considered full in all opulences, So that is another proof that Krishna is a person. And actually, because he's omnipotent, all of his body parts or senses, they can actually perform different functions. They are interchangeable. So as we offer prasad, offer the bhoga to Krishna, he just look, he just glance, and he can actually accept the prasad with his eyes, as it actually explained by Srila Prabhupada here. So similar way, actually, the creation, when actually in the beginning of the creation, there was a prakriti, the material energy, and Krishna actually impregnated the material prakriti with just his glance. So there are so many examples, that actually Krishna's senses, they are actually interchangeable. They can actually function, they can do the function of other sense. So that is the actually absolute nature of actually Krishna. So we have to understand this very clearly. So this is again, this is a clear distinction between material body and Krishna's actually absolute form or absolute eternal form. Okay, and the last point here says that, okay. So yeah, any questions on this? Actually, before we actually move on. So is that very clear that actually what is meant by the absolute form? And actually, we have to actually understand actually,
Yes, Prabhu.
actually, Hare Krishna. Sorry. So, absolute form, actually, it came into my reading. This is actually instruction of His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj, And Maharaj was, he was discussing Krishna's absolute nature, And we have to understand this very, very clearly because this is just not about his body or senses. But when we say Krishna is absolute, there is no difference between Krishna himself, his names, his paraphernalia, his instructions, as it is actually given in Bhagavad Gita or Shrimad Bhagavatam. We should not make the distinction. So I will read the actually, this is actually one of the realizations shared, that actually this is the words of His Holiness Mahavishnu Goswami Maharaj, where Maharaj is saying, he's referring to Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 4, verse 25, where Maharaj says that the moment we think that Krishna is different from his name, activities, glorification, we will be in anxiety. When we read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or chant the holy names, the vibration we hear is not different from Krishna. And only when we when our minds are purified by this vibration, we can go to his lotus feet. The attachment to this vibration will come only when we understand that all this material manifestation is temporary and completely like a dream. Yesterday you come here, you spoke to me. We all know that all that is a dream now. We have met a few times in the past. Now all that is a dream. Man, when you die, everything will be here. Your flat, your job, your vehicle, but you will go. When this idea sinks into our mind, then we will come to the reality of appreciating Krishna's name and descriptions. A few months back in Rajkot, Maharaj was mentioning, we fail to comprehend the idea that Krishna is not different from his name, form, and description. That's why we think that reading Bhagavad Gita is one thing, seeing Krishna is another thing. Maharaj's powerful word faithfully echoes the description uh, in the Vedas, which state that Supreme Lord is identical with his name, form, descriptions. So this is actually very nicely explained by Guru Maharaj, the absolute nature of Krishna. So why it is important for us? Actually, the similar point is explained here by Srila Prabhupada, that Krishna is absolute. There is no distinction between his name and himself. Because we chant this holy name, Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we chant, and actually, unless we have full faith that Krishna is absolute and there is no distinction between Krishna's name that we're chanting and Krishna, we will not actually get the, as Maharaj said, the vibrations are transcendental. Unless we have full faith in Krishna's absolute nature, it is not going to be very helpful to us. And we fail to understand this. There is no distinction between, because we think that Bhagavad Gita is different, holy name is different, and Krishna is different. That we have to develop this faith. We have to actually understand Krishna's absolute nature, and with that faith, when we chant, then actually it will really help us to purify ourselves, and we can actually progress nicely on this path. Okay. All right. Okay, we still have time. I think we'll go to the next paragraph. Okay, Maresh, let's start with the next one.
The Lord's worshipable form, Archa Vigraha. Is
Archa Vigraha.
that right, Prabhu?
It's a Archa Vigraha.
The Lord's worshipable form, Archa Vigraha, which is installed in temples by authorized acharyas who have realized the Lord in terms of Mantra 7, is non-different from the original form of the Lord. The Lord's original form is that of Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna expands himself into an unlimited number of forms, such as Baladev, Rama, Narsimha, and Varaha are one and the same personality of Godhead. Similarly, the Archa Vigraha worshipped in temples is also an expanded form of the Lord. By worshipping the Archa Vigraha, one can at once approach the Lord.
Hare Krishna, Maresh, can you hear us?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sorry, I got disconnected.
Okay, okay. Okay, now,
Similarly, I
yes,
can
I think
continue, Prabhu.
okay, you stopped at actually by worshipping the Archa Vigraha, one can at once approach the Lord. Okay. Yeah.
Approach the Lord, who accepts the service of the devotees by his omnipotent energy. The Archa Vigraha of the Lord descends at the request of the Acharyas, the holy original way, virtue of the Lord's omnipotence. Foolish people who have no knowledge of Sri Isopanishad or any of the other Shruti mantras consider the Archa Vigraha, which is worshipped by pure devotees, to be made of material elements. This form may be seen as material by the imperfect eyes of foolish people or Kanishtadikaris, but such a people do not know that the Lord, being omnipotent and omniscient, can transform matter into spirit and spirit into matter as he desires.
Okay. So here, Srila Prabhupada, is describing the Archa Vigraha, Lord's worshipable form, which are actually installed in temple by authorized acharyas, who have realized the Lord in terms of mantra 7. So, Archa Vigraha, that actually the deity is in the temple. They are installed by authorized acharyas. So, who are those acharyas? So, that is actually described in the mantra 7. So, we are talking here about Mahabhagavad, who actually sees all the spirit souls as a part and parcel of the Lord, and in one in quality with the Lord, right? So we have actually discussed that in mantra 7. So such a pure devotee, Mahabhagavad devotee, and they are actually authorized acharyas, so they install the deities in the temple, and they are actually non-different from the original form of the Lord. And the Lord's original form is that Sri Krishna. So Krishna's origin form, as we call it, the three bending Sham Sundar form. So that is his original form, and all the expansions, so actually takes place from that actually original form. So first into the Balaram, and from the Balaram there are further expansions, and then again there are incarnations. So this Baladev, Ram, Narsimha, Vara, Srila Prabhupada gives the example here. So all of these forms are also they're one and the same as personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada said Archa Vigraha, worship in a temple, is also expanded form of the Lord. Uh, by worshipping Archa Vigraha, one can at once approach the Lord. We accept the service of a devotee by his omnipotent energy. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that the deities that we see in the temple, which are actually installed by pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada or Acharyas, so they are actually non-different from Krishna as well. They are also expansion of a Krishna, as it is Srila Prabhupada has clearly explained. There is nothing actually. They are the similar, similar as expansion of Krishna himself. But actually, many people, who go to the temple, for the darshan, and even we go, but actually, uh, how much faith we have that actually we believe that actually deities that are actually present in the temple, they're actually the expansion of Krishna and Krishna himself. Not many people have that kind of faith. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says that actually in one of his lectures, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that everybody want to see God. Everybody want to actually experience God in person. They want to see Him face to face. But Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna is everywhere. Krishna has actually expanded Himself into through His energies everywhere, throughout the entire creation, and He's also present in the temple as well in a deity form. And he's standing in front of us, but we're saying that we want to see Krishna. We do not believe that deities standing in front of us are actually Krishna himself. The reason, because we do not have that kind of faith, or we do not have that knowledge. As we actually discuss this point, seeing with the knowledge, in mantra, I think 6, mantra 6, we actually spend some time on this point, that actually our senses are imperfect, our eyes are imperfect, we cannot see everything, and definitely not the transcendent form of the Lord with our material eyes. But if we actually study and we gain this knowledge from our spiritual master, so like we are actually studying the Srila Prabhupada's purpose here. So we come to know that now there is no difference between Krishna and the actually deities in the temple. They are the expansion of the Krishna. So we can see Krishna, but we need to have this actually eyes, or we also need to have a love for Krishna. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochena. So Srila Prabhupada always refer to this Brahma Samhita verse. So Srila Prabhupada says that you can see God everywhere. All you need to have is the actually the love for Krishna. The ointment of love need to be there in your eyes. So you can see Krishna everywhere. So seeing with the knowledge is very very important, because with our imperfect senses we do not see many things. So the knowledge is very important. Without knowledge we cannot see properly. That's why we call it Jnana Chakshu is very very important. And the same thing is confirmed here by Srila Prabhupada, that the deities in the temple, they're also expansion. And the next point, Srila Prabhupada writes, the Archa Vigraha of the Lord descend at the request of Acharya, the holy teachers, and works exactly in the original way of the Lord by virtue of Lord's omnipotence. Foolish people who have no knowledge of Sri Ishopanishad or any of the other Shruti mantras consider Archa Vigraha, which is worshipped by pure devotees, to be made up of material elements. This form may be seen as material by the imperfect eyes of a Polish people or Kanishtadhikaris, but such people do not know that the Lord, being omnipotent and omniscient, can transform matter into spirit and spirit into matter as he desires. So the first point, actually, when they install the Archa Vigraha, the deities in the temple, so the actually acharyas, the pure devotees, they request Krishna to descend into this actually Archa Vigraha. So that's how actually Krishna expand himself in these deities. As Srila Prabhupada says that the acharyas are holy teacher of pure devotees, Mahabhagavat. And once they are actually installed, they also work in a original way of the Lord by virtue of Lord's omnipotence. So Krishna he has all the actually all the potencies. He's all powerful. So there is actually no difference. The deities can also reciprocate in a similar way as the original form. Foolish people, Srila Prabhupada say, have no knowledge, and they think they actually deities are made up of material element. Yes, from the material point of view, they can see the deities are made from the wood or any other material element. But still, Krishna actually expand himself and actually expand into this Arsha Vigraha. There's no actually clear, there's no difference between actually that material form, means actually the deity is made up of material element, but after that actually expansion, there's no difference between Krishna and that expanded form. So actually this knowledge is very very important, because even if we are at the Kanishta Adhikari, then we do not have maybe that level of knowledge or understanding that we accept that. So Srila Prabhupada said that actually Krishna, he's being omnipotent and omniscient. He has all the powers. He's all knowing, and he can actually transfer material into spirit and spirit into matter. Sorry, matter into spirit and spirit into matter. So both actually the matter and the material energy and spiritual energy, they're both potencies of Krishna, right? So being actually potencies of Krishna, they're both divine in one way, and Krishna actually he can actually convert material energy into spiritual energy, and spiritual energy into material energy. So that actually, because he's actually all powerful, so we have to understand that actually even the deities, they are initially made from material element, which Krishna's potency, they become a spiritual. So this is very important. So when we go to the temple, we should have that faith, that the deity is standing before us, they're actually Krishna himself. So we all see Krishna, so we just need to have that faith. Okay, I think we are almost 5:50 now. So we will actually stop here, and we'll continue the rest of the purport next week. I think there's quite a bit to go, but I think I will endeavor to finish this by next week. Any questions so far before we actually conclude this? Okay, if no questions, we will end this session here. Thank you, Ambrish Prabhu, for giving me opportunity to speak on this verse. We will take a break now for 10 minutes and we'll come back for the main program.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji.